Cybersecurity and mobile, an increasing confluence of concern, you might say. And with me to talk about that is Chris Doggett, who's the Senior Vice President of Sales for Kaspersky Labs. And Chris, thanks for being with us today.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you being with us in the Buzz Zone. Let's just talk about, if you would, give me a broad picture. Mobile, cyber, what have we seen as far as trends, themes here in the past year or so?
Sure. Well, malware and attacks on mobile platforms is a relatively new area for cybersecurity. Traditionally, most of the cybercrime that's been gone on, most of the cyber espionage work that's gone on has gone on the internet, and it's gone on PCs and servers and more traditional forms of hardware and operating systems. But what we're seeing now is that attacks, malware, and the use of mobile platforms as a means to go after financial resources, to go after information resources, are very much on the rise. We've seen an explosion in malware written for mobile devices recently, and we're beginning to see attacks that use the mobile platform as part of the attack.
And who are they, or what are they attacking primarily?
Sure. Well, there's a wide range, but you could probably classify it into a few major categories. Certainly, a lot of cyber criminals are going after money. They're stealing financial resources. You probably heard about the ATM attack that happened recently, where I think there were 40,000 transactions globally, $45 million stolen. That's just a recent example of that. Another area that attackers will go after is intellectual property or trade secrets or software or things that they can steal and sell. Or in some cases, they're foreign governments that are stealing that information assets.
Sure.
So that's a second area. Third area is very different, and that's cyber espionage, and where we're seeing things stolen that are state secrets or state information, or they're attacks on critical infrastructure that have gone on. So there was a recent attack not too long ago, for example, on Saudi Aramco that had a very significant impact on their refinery operations. That was potentially a politically motivated attack, certainly had very significant repercussions for that organization. So you see a broad array of different attacks. The actors are typically either cyber criminals or they're state-sponsored organizations or groups that are doing this work. So these are very sophisticated, generally very sophisticated actors that we're seeing now, as opposed to maybe a decade ago when it was the teenager trying to hack the website.
A little more garage activity,
yes,
instead
exactly.
of something, as you said, even state-sponsored, as we unfortunately have a lot of documented cases. All right, what about the OSs? A lot of discussion about that, about Android and the iOS and pluses, minuses. I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Sure. Well, I think it's a really interesting area because mobile attacks and mobile security is something that's really very new to the industry, and we're seeing it being a very dynamic environment. So 2004 to 2010, I think we saw 1,100 pieces of malware for mobile platforms in general. This past year, we saw over 30,000. It's really been a hockey stick effect in terms of attackers utilizing mobile operating systems and mobile platforms to do their work. What we're seeing at Kaspersky Lab at this point with our research and analysis team is that most of that is going towards Android. Our latest data is 94% of the malicious code that's been written has been for the Android platform. And that's been the attack surface of choice, the target-rich environment, if you will, for them.
Right. So the Android side, and on the other side, obviously Apple with a more closed, a more constrained environment. Is it conceivable that perpetuates itself? I mean, that stays the same status quo, and that Android can get better, or is there a threat on the iOS side at all?
It's I think it's a question of time. I think it's inevitable that we will see more attacks on the iOS side. I think it's a question of how quickly the industry and companies react to the Android threat. Simply put, attackers are taking advantage. They'll focus on their efforts on two things. First of all, where's the largest pool of targets to go after, the biggest attack surface? And second of all, which of the 2 or 3 that are the largest pools of machines, to take advantage of, or users, which ones are the easiest. And what you're seeing right now, the reason why so much of the malicious activities on Android is that it's an open operating system, and it's also very easy to develop apps with malicious code, for example, embedded in them, and to publish them and have users consume them. So they're going after that surface because Android's 50+% of all the mobile devices out there run Android, number one, so it's the largest, and number two, because it's very vulnerable right now. I think we'll see the balance of attacks and malicious code shift over time with response to that. As industry, as companies, as consumers start to find better ways to protect themselves.
It's almost like a seesaw, you're saying. Almost as the other one levels out, then the other side of that seesaw becomes a little more vulnerable.
Exactly.
Or at least interesting.
It's like the old adage, you don't have to outrun a bear, you just have to be faster than the other guy, right? So if security comes up on the Android platform, which we assume it would, taking the history in PC as an example, we'll need to do, Apple will need to do more work for the iOS environment. Right now they've got a pretty good story going where they've got a closed platform. If you want to publish an app, it needs to go through their process, which includes careful screening for malicious code. But what we also know in the industry is no company is perfect, even Apple. And things can slip through. In fact, Kaspersky last year identified a piece of code or an app that we considered to be malicious called Find and Call. And what this app did was, it was something that you could load on your phone and use it to find people that you were going to contact. However, what it didn't advertise about the way it was written is it would actually go into your address book. It would take all of your contacts without your permission and send them out to a server. And then the people who are controlling that server would in fact use all of your contacts to send spam text messages to them without your permission, without you knowing about it. So that's an example of something that slipped through. I think we also know no hardware platform is invulnerable either, and so there's certainly attacks that could happen to individual devices. There will be vulnerabilities in browsers, for example, and other things that will not make it a totally secure platform. So, back to your question, as the security comes up on Android, we'll start to see more things go after the iOS environment, and we'll need to be there to respond at that time. We can't wait for it to happen. We should really be getting ahead of it at this point.
Well, proactivity certainly sounds like that.
Absolutely.
That's the high priority. We certainly appreciate the work you've been doing, and I want to thank you as well for spending time with us here in the Buzz Zone.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure.
Thank you.